Ladies and gentlemen, if you are a parent worried sick about your kid consuming too much social media, then this one is for you. Australia is planning something no other country has tried before: banning kids under 16 from using social media, which is TikTok, which is Instagram, which is Twitter, which is Facebook as well. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is saying that the proposed legislation is about protecting young minds from the dangers of apps like Instagram and TikTok, where teens are often exposed to harmful content, bullying, and social pressures. And this isn't just about banning. The government says it will hold tech companies accountable for keeping kids off their platform. Listen in to what the Australian Prime Minister has said.
Social media is doing harm to our kids, and I'm calling time on it. I've spoken to thousands of parents, grandparents, aunties and uncles. They, like me, are worried sick about the safety of our kids online. And I want Australian parents and families to know that the government has your back. I want parents to be able to say, sorry mate, it's against the law for me to get you to do this. Now, government's proposed age is 16. That decision was made in Cabinet on Monday. The onus will be on social media platforms to demonstrate they are taking reasonable steps to prevent access. The onus won't be on parents or young people. There will be no penalties for users.
But the move has triggered a strong debate. Supporters argue that the ban will prevent exposure to harmful content, to misinformation, and social pressures that are too much for young minds to handle. Others are saying a ban is too blunt an instrument and may only delay but not prevent the concerns of social media exposure. What will these kids do after 16? After all, kids need the skills to navigate the digital world, which means stricter safety standards for platforms, more of a need over an outright ban. Some are talking about enforcement challenges. How will you even do it? Others are insisting that the mental health risks make this move worth trying. Now, here's a thought. Should India be considering something similar? With millions of young Indians as young as 3 years online daily, we know the impact of social media on mental health is a great concern, is a growing concern. Could a stricter age limit be a way to help, or do we need a different approach? Whichever way, is it time to India to hit pause on social media for kids? I'm fairly certain a lot of parents are nodding their heads, not so sure about what the kids are saying. My guest this evening, Pawan Duggal, is a cybersecurity expert joining us on the broadcast. Anu Lal is a lawyer, author. Lloyd Matthijs is a technology expert. Dr. Bhavna Barmi is a child and clinical psychologist joining us on the broadcast. We'll just wait for her to fix her frame. All of them parents as well. Anu Lal, I'm coming to you first. In your view, as a parent, as a lawyer, is the move too drastic? Look, we all understand there's a problem with social media and kids. We all understand the addiction. We all understand the fact that social media is telling us how to think, how to behave, how to feel, what to eat, what to consume, what to buy. There is a concern. But is the move too drastic?
First of all, Shreya, I'm so glad we didn't have this social media siyapa in our zamana. Na? We grew up pretty okay, thank God for that. But you know, jokes apart, this social media is a very complicated beast. And you mentioned a few angles. In Australia, there's a fierce debate about this ban, which also adds that who decides what's good for the kids? And critics are seeing it as a government attempt to exert authoritarian control over kids. Thankfully, we don't have that kind of government intervention, so that's not our angle of debate. As a content creator, I myself see the impact that social media has firsthand. And not just on young adults, but adults too. You know, not just young people, but adults too. And many people don't really fully understand that how often content is monetized, how often it is manipulated to influence our decisions, beliefs, you know, our self-image, and eventually our buying habits. So these algorithms, the power that they have is huge. It's not easy to regulate big tech just like that. It's not just a ban that's going to big tech, is going to regulate it, even if we want to. So social media apps are designed, and everybody needs social media apps. The government needs it. The government needs it for surveillance and also to form our opinions. So it's not going away anytime very soon. So we need to accept that. But yeah, at the end of the day, we need to create some behaviors on how we are going to regulate it. Social media literacy is what I call it. Like we teach other subjects, we need to teach people, young adults, kids, and adults, on how to navigate these spaces. They are often unprepared. Most people are unprepared about the selling pitches, the misinformation, propaganda, the cyberbullying that happens. So I think a little bit of social media literacy, along with learning history and geography and maths, would be required, and that is, I think, the way forward, because it's a powerful tool. It can do both harm and good, and it's up to society how do we create a balanced and informed approach in it. That's pretty much my summary of it.
Okay, but Pawan Dugal, why does a 8-year-old or a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old need social media?
Well, today, everybody is part of a new revolution that's engulfed us. I call it the Great Indian Vomiting Revolution. When everybody is vomiting data on their personal, professional, social lives, on the internet, on social media, then you have a huge fear of missing out. And because people want to not miss out, they want to further go ahead and vomit more data. So it's a vicious cycle, and that's the reason why youngsters are saying we require social media as an independent manifestation of my freedom of speech and expression. Why? Because I can become a global author, a global transmitter, and a global broadcaster of data. And consequently, whether I'm 3 years old, or whether I'm 8 years old or 10 years old, I still require access to this global paradigm. So in a scenario like this, it's going to be very difficult for any government to now control this entire Lakshman Rekha. Why? For the very simple reason that the doors have already opened up. It's now not going to be possible for you to shut down the doors. You try to do that, and you'll find so many indirect ways of trying to go behind the so-called ban. In any case, banning is, as a phenomenon, does not really look of any effective remedy. Banning is a 19th century mindset to deal with a 21st century challenge. That clearly would not work, more so because internet has made geography history, and much that you try to ban stuff, you only end up banning within your territorial boundaries, but then people use virtual private networks and other technologies to bypass these so-called bans, to reach out to the banned website. And mind you, the more you ban, the more you propagate and increase the traffic to the concerned website or the concerned paradigm, because people want to find out what is so special that's been banned. So the more you ask children not to go in a particular direction, the more they determined they are and they become in order to go in that direction. So I think we need to look at more innovative, more customized, holistic solutions rather than talking of ban of social media. Yes, the ultimate stop has to start from home, which is trying to sensitize these youngsters, these kids, about the need for adopting cyber hygiene as a part of their day-to-day lives, need for us to prepare them what they will do in the event they face any kind of challenges on the deep waters of the internet, rather than just saying let's ban this, let's ban that. And even if you say that, nobody in the world is going to listen to you, because they will still land up offering the same services on servers located in another parts of the world. So clearly I think we need to see the entire prism and the entire debate from a different perspective onwards.
I understand. You're saying it's simply not implementable. Therefore, we'll have to wait and watch and see how Australia does it, because they are not putting the onus on parents. They're bringing in a legislation, they're not putting the onus on parents, they're putting the onus on tech companies. But Dr. Bhavna Barmi, the fact is that desperate times call for desperate measures, and we are living in desperate times where 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds are addicted to social media. There's, older kids are spending 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours just doom scrolling. So there is an issue. And it seems parents can't control that issue. But should the government be stepping in?
I agree that this is a very big holistic issue, and definitely screens, social media, and the likes have a very strong impact on especially the sensitive and impressionable mind of children. So, what I would like to say from a mental health perspective is that there are pros and cons, and insights into seeing where we can get a balance is actually very, very important. So, like, what would be the pros of this? Pros is that it does reduce the exposure to harmful content. Limiting access to social media could reduce children's exposure to things even like cyberbullying, inappropriate content, unrealistic beauty standards, especially for adolescents, which are often linked with mental health concerns like anxiety, body image issues, depressions, and addictions. I think another pro of this could be more real time world interaction. Without social media or limited use of that, children may be more likely to engage in face to face interactions, which can improve social skills and reduce the so called feelings of loneliness and alienation that the world itself is going through. Of course, with children, there will be better quality of sleep, better quality of appetite, better focus on studies. So, a lot of this has the pros of it. Yet, insight into the potential cons is very important to establish a balance for mental health. One of the cons that I would like to bring to our notice is the potential increase in secrecy and risky behavior. As we all mentioned, children may try to circumvent the rules using fake IDs or other means to access the social media. And this secrecy could actually lead to even more increased risky online behavior. As children are going to then develop this as a temperament, and this childhood temperament will lead to a lot of antisocial and misconduct and oppositional defiance as mental health in the future. So one needs to be careful because it is
Okay.
also leading them to have missed opportunities for self-expression. If we look at it, social media was allowing these young
I'm just
children to
thinking to
explore
myself,
their identity.
but the point is, I'm just thinking to myself, if you today take away the phone from a 13-year-old, my God, I can only imagine the withdrawal symptoms and the sort of friction it will cause in the family. But Lloyd Matthijs, I'm fairly certain that tech companies will not give up without a fight. My whole point, Lloyd, is that if parents, father, mother, grandparents are stuck on the phone, doom scrolling on their Facebook, on Instagram, 8 hours a day, it's what kids are seeing. And they are also replicating your behavior. So my point is, should the government be getting in to regulate and say, okay, there is a risk to your kid as far as his or her mental health is concerned, as far as his or her online security is concerned, and the parents go scot-free, koi responsibility nahi hai hum logon ka?
Thanks for highlighting this issue, Shreya. I think primarily, directly from the government standpoint, that this speaks of political grandstanding. It's a classic example of, in a sense, the government trying to make a broad appeal to its electorate, so to speak, saying that we are on your side, we are on the side of the parents, you're our potential voters, and therefore we're going to take some pretty drastic measures. It's akin to, let's say, some of Indian governments that do prohibition because they know it gets them the women vote. I think very little thought has gone into the hows and whys of implementation. While I think all of us on the panel agree that access social media to younger children is not desirable and has clear mental health issues, I think the issue has to be looked at slightly more holistically. This is not just the responsibility of social media platforms. I think this is a coordinated joint responsibility of parents, of everyone in civil society, of regulators, and certainly of social media platforms. And therefore, putting the onus on social media platforms and moving away from parental and government responsibility, to my mind, strikes of overreach. I would say just three things. I think one is a ban only delays the exposure of young people to what is going to be an inevitable life too. Right? The best way is really to educate them on how do they use social media more responsibility, and also caution them of some of the pitfalls that a lot of what you see and a lot of what you put out there is indelible. It stays with you for life. And it's also open to being misused. So I think that's one. I think secondly, it's about educating children how to navigate the benefits of risk and risks of being online. I think that's a big area, which again is a joint responsibility. And thirdly, where I think social media platforms have to take the lead as much as the government, is imposing safety standards on social media platforms. What kind of, shall we say, consumption can happen? What kind of content goes on? So some degree of regulation so that younger people don't get exposed to, shall we say, very gory or very inappropriate behavior. So therefore, I think it's a joint responsibility. And I think what Australia has done seems like political grandstanding to me. It's really about a bold statement saying, "Hey, parents, we are with you. Let's just ban kids under 16." I think the practicability of this has really not been examined, and I don't think this will succeed unless it's a more coordinated approach.
It has to be a more coordinated approach. But Anulal, would you want to come in on the point of, adults setting a bad example for children? You can blame kids for social media addiction. You can blame them for scrolling through their phones through the day, etc., etc. But parents have to take the responsibility of setting an example. I see most parents constantly on the phones, and if their kids do it, there's a problem.
Yeah, there are 2 or 3 points here which I want to highlight. Of course, the adults are equally addicted to social media platforms. It's not just children. Adults are, as you said, absolutely equally addicted. So the behavior that children see are pretty much, they don't have good behaviors to see in parents. So that point, of course, exists, which is true for everything: eating habits, exercise habits, everything that a child sees. I don't think adults are also very careful of the fact or even aware of the fact that how much they are being sold to, how much of the toxicity that they are consuming, and how much of, gets covered under the garb of anonymity. Social media is like, we are not interacting like we are interacting face to face. We are civil when we interact face to face. There's a whole layer of anonymity that happens on social media, which leads to a lot more toxicity and a lot of behavior setting, a lot of abuse, which eventually how do we tackle it? I'll give you a very simple example, Shreya. Even on your shows, I see, when we are discussing, say, Palestine versus Israel, people comment on the sari color, saying that this is the flag of this particular country. I mean, that borders on abuse. That is happening only because it's easy on social media. It would not have happened if a person is in front of you. So these behaviors that even adults need to be very wary about when they are being sold to, when is a misinformation, when there is a bullying happening. We need to address this across our populations. How do we deal with it? And that's why I go back to social media literacy.
Dr.
That
Bhavna,
is very much needed in today's society.
Dr. Bhavna Barmi, I was reading somewhere that, in a day, adults will use 1,000 words in a conversation, but because your kid is constantly on social media or on the phone, not paying attention and completely misses out on that. Is social media turning our kids into antisocial beings who are not even listening to what you're saying? That's my experience.
Yeah. Shreya, it's very unfortunate, but because we as a society have become so screen friendly and the screen has become our friend, our colloquial communications and expressions have become very different and have become very, very virtual. And because of that, the impact of this is actually coming onto our children because we as role models are not able to give them the right kind of value system because this is what is called as incidental learning. What they see is what they learn. And even this, instead of an outright ban, guiding these adolescents to develop healthy online habits, especially by the parents, can provide sustainable benefits. And a lot of studies in developmental psychology suggest that our young children learn from the adults, especially the adolescents. They will benefit more from understanding why a rule exists. So, as parents, if you're able to speak to them about a why, rather than simply telling them, do not do it, or the government simply telling them, or the industry simply telling them, do not do it, it's not going to work. by teaching our young people to critically analyze social media content, which is what we call as digital literacy, is what is going to work. So rather than having a strict social media ban, which may seem like a very straightforward solution, it could actually drive many more issues underground, which we all need to be very, very careful on. So an education-based approach, fostering digital literacy and open communication with parents to the children, ultimately is going to provide a healthier and more effective way to support young people's mental well-being, especially in this digital age. So we need to be exceptionally sensitive at what are we promoting and how, because this total ban on social media can actually create a very, very negative atmosphere in the minds of our young children.
Okay, so I think everyone on the panel then agrees that a complete ban is a bad idea, right? Everyone is agreeing with that. But Pawan Dugal, I have exactly 30 seconds and I want to ask you a quick question. Do you think social media giants who have deep pockets will give up without a fight? That they will not challenge Australia's ban on social media for kids under the age of 16?
By all means, they will continue to keep on challenging in Australia this so-called ban, but they are not necessarily bothered. Why? Because they are offering their platforms from servers which are located in the US, which allows these kinds of services to be made available. So they will fight it on two different levels. One, to challenge it in Australia, the ban on legal grounds, on constitutional grounds. But on the other hand, they will continue to keep on offering their services on servers located outside the territorial boundaries of Australia, so that they cannot come under the rigors of that law. And in any case, these intermediaries and big data service providers are going to rely upon the statutory exemption from legal liability that's been granted to them in America by virtue of Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. So I don't see any kind of an immediate end to this kind of a saga. This is going to be a conflict, a struggle between a government who wants to ban versus the big tech with deep pockets who want to make sure that they continue to keep on having access to children, to people, their minds, their mind share and their thought processes, so that they can continue to not just manipulate those thought processes and minds, but also monetize the data to their own advantage. So we're going to see a lot of action in this regard in the coming times.
Thank you, Pawan Dugal, for joining us. This has been a good discussion. Anulal, thank you very much. Lloyd Matthias, always good to have you. And Dr. Bhavna Barmi, thank you very much. I think everyone on this panel agrees that a ban is not ideal. It is something that will not work. But ladies and gentlemen, we do live in desperate times. And is Australia's ban a desperate measure, or is it political grandstanding? You've heard the debate. We'll let you decide. Thanks for watching. Good night.